So we picked out some news stories that like we don't ever have a like a bunch of news that we just can't talk about. But and this is one of those weeks where me and Beat are sitting there going, well, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. Maybe we should talk about this. And so we finally to 3 for our ElseNews. And the first one is that Dave Chappelle gets himself a 3 Netflix comedy special deal. The project will mark Chappelle's first stand-up television special in 12 years and marks another aggressive push by Netflix in the stand-up comedy arena. The deal calls for Chappelle and director Stan Lathan to produce an original special for Netflix, and then 2 other unreleased projects will come from Chappelle's vaults. One produced out of the Austin City Limits live venue, and the other a performance at the Hollywood Palladium. Now, this is pretty cool, and I didn't realize his last stand-up special was 12 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's that long ago, but I mean, Chappelle Show was the mid-90s, I guess. So
I think mid-2000s.
After 9/11. Yeah, it was not after 9/11. He was the first comedian to break the tensions.
Yeah,
that was the thing he was picked for. He said himself in a Attack on the Block, or no, what's they made a concert at the Block in New York, and then he talked with the Roots drummer, and he said he was paid actually to exactly do that, ease up the tensions of 9/11.
Yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. But and he actually had this year, I would say, one of the performances on SNL too. Out of this season, I mean, you had. I don't think I've seen one slouch yet in performances. I mean, everyone's talking about the Gary Pumpkins from Tom Hanks when Tom Hanks hosted. But still, I mean, there hasn't been even the second half, like after Weekend Update, those seem to be strong. And I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed. I love the Dave Chappelle episode, and that made me go, yeah, we need to see more of him. And apparently, Netflix had that same thought with bringing him here.
Yeah, how much of Dave Chappelle's stand-up have you seen though, as compared to Dave Chappelle doing the skits?
Saw the last stand-up special, the one that was on Comedy Central, like right before he left, like he quit doing the Chappelle Show and all that. I think I saw that one, but again, and I mean, it's one of those. I will say this: I'm not a big fan of Dave Chappelle. I have respect for the guy. I mean, I have respect for anyone who can go out there and do, who can do these. Go up there and do stand up and all that stuff. And it just seems like this is smart business on Netflix. In all complete honesty, I mean, killing it with the stand up stuff. To be honest.
Yeah, they definitely Yeah, they've definitely been having a lot of stand-up specials. The thing I'm really hoping for is that this leads to something akin to the Chappelle Show coming back again, because what he did with the Chappelle Show is why I wanted to talk about this story. The very first episode of the Chappelle Show features the skit with him being the blind white supremacist. And the shots he took at racism in that show, one of my favorite sketches he ever did was the race draft, when all the races were lined up like the NFL draft, and they were taking Tiger Woods and it was hysterical, and he gave it to everybody equally, and I think racial tensions are something that's going to be very strong in this country for the next couple years. And so I definitely think his brand of humor is something we're going to need. And hopefully this stand-up special leads to something like that, because that's really what I want to see out of this. Is I want to see more Chappelle Show stuff. I want to see more sketch comedy out of Dave Chappelle.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, Netflix recently, also I will add, because this is in the article, Netflix also paid Chris Rock $40 million for 2 stand-up specials. So I'm interested to see how much they're paying Chappelle, essentially for one new stand-up special, and then two that he has from his vaults, as they're calling it, making him sound like the Walt Disney of stand-up comedy.
I'm rich, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think this is all really going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see this, because I mean it makes a lot more sense than, oh well, we'll give you the movie picture deals like we did with Adam Sandler, and I think Kevin James got that same deal. It's like, really,
Kevin Hart?
That. But yeah, so that's with that story. The next one, Justice League Dark. It's officially an R-rated DC animated movie. I think this is the second or third. I don't remember what Assault on Arkham was rated, but that seemed like that might have been rated R2. So with this, we're getting a new trailer, and depicted in the trailer, the Justice League Dark finds the world under attack from supernatural forces that prompt the Justice League's Batman to seek aid from occult investigator John Constantine. Constantine forms a team of other supernatural heroes, Swamp Thing, Deadman, Zatanna, and Etrigan the Demon, to help save the world. And this is the one that was brought up because Matt Ryan is reprising his role as Constantine. And the voice cast that they actually have in here is pretty cool. Who's it? Enrico Calatoni from Galaxy Quest and Veronica Mars will play Felix Faust. Alfred Molina, who's in the nerd culture most famously for playing Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2, will play Destiny. And Arrow's Roger C. Cross will play both Swamp Thing and John Stewart. This is really cool. I mean, been a big Constantine fan since the TV show. Was so upset that they canceled that. Really enjoying the comic books. Love the end of Justice League Dark with the New 52. But yeah, I don't know. Shawn, what do you think of this?
Well, I did just check, and Assault on Arkham was PG-13, so this is only going to be their second foray into it following The Killing Joke. And, you know, I was one of those brave souls that went and saw The Killing Joke in theaters for the 2-night release, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. First of all, basically anything Batman I'm going to enjoy. That's just the way I am. And to hear Kevin Conroy back with Mark Hamill, that was my Batman growing up, was the animated series in the mid-90s. That's what I relate to. So hearing those two together again was really fascinating. And they also did a really interesting thing. Before the movie, they showed a vignette about Mark Hamill. And so that goofy song that the Joker sings in The Killing Joke, you actually got to see Mark Hamill standing in front of the microphone singing that song, which was creepy as hell. And then at the end of the movie, they did like a little vignette on the score and the orchestra that did it and the conductor and everything. It was really neat. So I'm hoping that Justice League Dark gives us something like that as well, because I love DC's animated. I've watched every one of the animated movies that they've put out. Some are better than others, but definitely I find them to be enjoyable. And I think being able to see it in a theater and being able to get those other pieces that you might only get if you go out and buy the DVDs and you know, read listen to the commentary or the other features and stuff like that on it. It was really interesting to get to see that in a theatrical setting. So I'm really hoping that that's what they start doing with these. I know critically, Killing Joke wasn't greatly received, but it did make them money. You know, people did go out and see it in the movie theaters. So, and you know, they definitely have a really good cast for this. I mean, Rosario Dawson's playing Wonder Woman 2, Jerry O'Connell's doing Superman. So, you know, even a few other names in there. It should be interesting. And I don't think that a lot of people who are like me, who are interested in superheroes but don't have the depth of comic book knowledge that others do, might be really interested in this Justice League Dark, because it's probably not something they're very familiar with. If you say things like Swamp Thing, Green Lantern, they're going to know what you're talking about. You say John Constantine, they might know what you're talking about, but then you get into some of the others like Zatanna, Jason Blood. They're not going to be people that the casual comic book fans are going to know. So hopefully there's going to be some intrigue for that too, that they're going to want to say, let me get in there and kind of check this out, because I've read a lot of the Justice League stuff, but I've never gotten into the Justice League Dark. But again, right in the front, there's Batman on the cover of this on IMDb. So I'm all in, because it's got the bat. So I'm good.
Yeah, this to me says it's more along the lines of how Batman Assault on Arkham was, where it wasn't a Batman movie at all. It was essentially a Suicide Squad movie.
Right.
But they used Batman for the marketing. That's what I think they're going to do with this. The only difference being Batman in here is voiced by Jason O'Mara as opposed to Kevin Conroy. So you got the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. playing Batman in this one, as opposed to, the one that I grew up with, especially, and you mentioned the original Batman animated series voice, doing the voice.
Yeah.
But I really think this is going to be cool. I do have that knowledge. It comes from just 5-6 years of reading comics, since the New 52 launched. And they did have, and Swamp Thing quickly became a favorite of mine, and it's mainly because of Charles Soule, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, writing Swamp Thing for DC before becoming exclusive to Marvel. And just loving how this really cool story that they told, that I would love to see as an animated movie. I think this is what's going to springboard it, because Swamp Thing, yeah, some older people might know who Swamp Thing is, but I don't think the younger kids, would know who Swamp Thing is.
Yeah.
And all that. So, it's like you say Batman, okay, yeah, they're going to know him. Constantine, okay, yeah, they might know him, but really outside of that, it's like, who's Deadman, who's Zatanna, who's, man,
no.
They might know some of these guys if they watched on Netflix the Justice League shows, but that's really it.
Yeah.
Just
expanding the movie, or expanding into the more mystical stuff or the DC animated projects.
I'm really excited too, but the thing is that it's R-rated, doesn't make it adult. It could be exploitive in a way that we don't want to. If they go full Negan, I'm not interested in that type of R. So it has to fit the purpose of the story, and the whole thing is hanging in the balance of not riding the Deadpool R-rated wave. Because Killing Joke could have been not R-rated and leave out a part that made it R-rated that wouldn't have changed the story at all.
Right.
That's the thing that was criticized, and I respect that, because I felt it was exploitive, not necessarily in a good way, but there it is. Sometimes superhero needs to have some boner time. And
no, yeah, definitely. And
it just happened for Matt Ryan. Because I hope... Go ahead.
Sorry. I do think that, one, Hangout Lag sucks, but I do think that it's interesting because it is R-rated for violence, so it will definitely be one of those. Yeah, it'll be one of those where I do think it is, because I always relate to animated movies on how they would be for families, because I know people who their kids really love comic book characters, and they're 4 or 5 years old, and it's like, okay, go watch these movies, or go show them these movies, except for Assault on Arkham and The Killing Joke, and I want to say Justice League Dark might be one, but watch it first, sort of deal, because the violence I think is a little bit easier to explain. away than, Mommy, why is Constantine and Zatanna wrestling? Or something like that. Like,
yeah,
like they'd have to do.
Yeah, but I think there's a place for the adult stuff and for the kids stuff. I mean, it's like when Deadpool came out and, parents were complaining, oh, it's a superhero movie, it shouldn't be rated R. And it's like, yeah, but you've got so many others that aren't rated R, and if you're picking on this particular one, it's because you don't understand what Deadpool is. But even if even if you're just looking superficially and saying it's a superhero movie, therefore it should be for the kids, well, no, not necessarily. You can have superhero movies that are for the kids, and we've got plenty of them. But we can also have these other ones that are grittier. Now, I don't want to take every superhero movie and make it like that so the kids don't have Guardians of the Galaxy and they don't have, Iron Man and things like that. I mean, I like the fact that we can have both. And I think that this is kind of the DC Animated's version of having both. Hopefully they're not going to turn around and say, okay, after Killing Joke made this much money and Justice League Dark makes this much, all of our animated features are going to be R going forward. That, I think, would be problematic. But just having one or two every now and then that you just have to look at them and say, well, no, these aren't for the kids. These are for the adults, It's like when we have game night at my house. I have a 6-year-old. We play lots of games that the 6-year-old can play with us, and then we play Cards Against Humanity when he goes to bed. It's like we don't do that in front of the 6-year-old. And it's the same way with this stuff. You have to realize that not everything in this world is going to be appropriate for your kids, and you have to take responsibility as a parent to know what is and what isn't. And this clearly probably isn't, at least not for that young. My 14-year-old, even though it's rated R, if it's rated R for violence and things like that, I'd probably be okay with him watching it. The 6-year-old, no. But I think that's, my right as a parent to try and make that decision.
No, yeah, definitely.
And the whole thing is demeaning to comic book readers that you say it's for kids, so it has to fit for them. No, superheroes have death. They have adult themes in a format that looks for kids, but they tried, some artists at least, to set the bar high. So yeah. But
let's not forget here that Glenn Rubenstein, former, the guy who created this show, essentially, pointed out a long time ago that the Alias series featured Jessica Jones getting essentially butt raped by a mind-controlled Luke Cage. Now you're going to tell me that book is for kids? Yeah, that's my argument. Is there are stories in there. The Killing Joke is another great story that adults will read, and I even had this at work where a kid just wrote, a grandma was shopping for her granddaughter's wish list, and she's like, comic books. I'm like, oh, sweet, I can answer these questions. And I'm like, Smile, I've never heard of this book, Smile. And I'm like, might have had it wrong. I'm like, Smile. And I'm like, oh, fuck, she wanted The Killing Joke? How old's your granddaughter? 6. I don't think this is the book she wants, but I don't know. And I'm like, wait, hold on, let me check one more spot. And thankfully she wasn't referring to Killing Joke, but I'm like, yeah, I don't think you could get that book for her because there's a scene there where it's alluded that the bad guy, the guy on the cover, rapes a girl, and then and some other bad things like that. So yeah, I don't know if we're gonna call that a kid's book. That's the problem I have with people who put these generalizations on things.
Yeah.
I mean, Walking Dead would be a kid's TV show then.
Yeah. Which my 6-year-old does watch and loves, but that's my choice. Yeah, not every 6-year-old is going to be okay with that. Yes. Now, I will say my 6-year-old does not sit and watch that by himself. He watches it with me so that I can explain things. So,
One thing, a side note that's interesting, that they introduced Constantine again, because they did it with Keanu Reeves, Warner Brothers. They tried it again with NBC. They put it in CW, and now they're back in the animated movies. So I hope they try to make him the Doctor Strange of DC, because I love the character, and he could be that character. Maybe a movie.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I was definitely one of the people who was like, all right, yes, they got the TVC or the series of Constantine over on CW Seed. Maybe it'll get pulled in with the Arrowverse and he'd get his own spin-off. Damn it, he's English. He's going to get deported. We need to get him a show here in America. Come on.
Get him a work piece.
Yeah. But yeah, so our final story is that Legendary lands the film and television rights to Frank Herbert's Dune. And this, I'm assuming this is the first paragraph, but Legendary has definitely done the damn difficult in acquiring the rights to Frank Herbert's venerated science fiction classic Dune. The geek-centric movie studio behind blockbuster spectacles like Pacific Rim, Godzilla, and Warcraft has agreement with the Frank Herbert estate for the film and television motion picture rights to the beloved novel, which has earned a reputation as one of the most sought-after and difficult to acquire sci-fi properties of all time. This is freaking cool. I mean, I love seeing this to where I'll sum up this way. I'm very much in the same mind of Scott Johnson, where because I watched on last week's episode of Current Geek, where he was talking about in their forecast segment about educating the younger kids on the great stuff that happened in the past. I mean, so you don't get moments where, to use a horrible and cliched answer, you don't have kids going, "Oh, don't spoil the movie Titanic. I haven't seen the ending." That's fucking history, kid. Sort of deal. But it's where we don't have stuff like that, like where they forget about these great things, these great movies that happened, or books that happened 40, 50 years before they were even born. And so to see this, I'm excited for this, even though I haven't read the book.
Books.
Yeah.
Books. Yeah, sorry.
I think that's important. I've never read the books, and I haven't seen this movie in probably 20 years, but and here you go. I'm going to do a little shameless self-promotion here for my network. We've got a show with Lazy Caribou called Geek Cinema Society that goes back and looks at these influential geek movies. And one of the segments that they always talk about is, how did this movie influence other movies and other TV shows and things we're seeing today? And I think that's really an important part when we talk about these older books and older movies, because without Dune, do we have, the Dune books and stuff like that? I know the movie came after, but without the Dune books, do we have things like Star Wars? Do we have, without Star Trek, do we have Star Wars? Do we have, Firefly? Do we, so all of these things are connected and built on one another, even if not directly, at least they come from a similar pedigree. And so I think it's kind of important that, like you were saying, that the younger kids get to see these older works and be able to say, this is important because without X, we don't have Y. Without the Flintstones, we don't have the Simpsons, or Family Guy or any of those other things. And without the Simpsons and Family Guy, you don't have things like Archer and things like that. So I do agree with you that I think it's really important that kids understand, and not just kids, but younger adults and even adults who are getting into the geekier stuff later in life, because let's admit it, when I was 15 to 20, this stuff wasn't cool. You weren't allowed to be this nerdy, whereas now, as a 41-year-old, this stuff is all cool. So there's a lot of people my age who are now starting to go backwards and embrace this stuff. So having things like this, that you can take these older stories and modernize them for a newer audience and still give them the sense of, this is where this stuff came from originally, and these are what we owe our cultural zeitgeist to. I think you're right. It's really important.
Yeah.
Well, as a resident Dune book reader and movie watcher, I'm very excited, and it's Legendary that does it. That makes me think, okay, they're going to go for the geeky way, because they did Matrix, they did Warcraft, they did the Ninja movie and all the stuff. They go full on in. If they're honing in to something, they don't care about its popularity. They go for convey the idea that the material had. And the book, the first one was mostly read by many friends I had, and then they gave up because they didn't know that the following up books made it a much bigger epic than it already was. And Star Wars comparison makes sense, I understand, but it's I would call it high concept science fiction, real hard sci-fi, because Frank Herbert did a lot of detailed work in how planetary systems have to be being provided with goods and other things, how lineage works over thousands of years, and got a perspective that none other material had. And there was a documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune, that was a Chilean crazy guy that made some great comics as well. And he tried to get Dali, Giger. He had, oh shit, I'm thinking out of other names, but he had the greatest artists of the time was ready to do. And he had made a book, this fake more, that had drawings, concepts, arts, and so on. And it made the runs in Hollywood because it didn't get filmed. That many people, including George Lucas, got a page of this and got the idea out of it, because when you see the documentary, you see almost every science fiction movie ripping off or paying homage to that book. And you can go there and get a taste for it and then decide if you're into the Dune world, into not going reading 6 books that are this fake. So there's that. And there's the sci-fi miniseries that was done that had terrible CGI that threw me out, but when I rewatched it, it was okay because it was more like the book. The David Lynch movie had some liberties and it changed the whole narration. So if you're into going more visual, you don't like watching documentaries, then watch the miniseries from Dune. That's my suggestion.
Nice. Well, that is it for the news.